Africans need to leave fiction in the church and wake up to the true reality. There is no savior that is coming to save you, because you are the consequences of your own choices. Your life is the consequence of your own actions. And this is something that a lot of Africans need to understand. And in this video, we are actually going to look at how religion is keeping Africans poor. And we're going to look at this in 4 chapters. The first chapter is poverty mindset. And many times when you listen to a lot of African pastors, they're always telling Africans, if you're poor on earth, you're going to get your riches in heaven. And this has been indoctrinated in so many Africans that they think that poverty and suffering is their ticket into heaven. And so many are not really willing to put in a lot of effort to get themselves out of poverty, because what do you mean you're trying to eradicate their ticket into heaven? And these teachings are really seeped into the subconscious to a point that a lot of Africans are actually installing corrupt governments, corrupt leaders, incompetent leaders, because it means that these leaders are going to uphold the state of suffering, which is what a lot of Africans need in order to go into heaven. It's the most ridiculous kind of thinking, but unfortunately this is the reality. And these pastors will go on and on about how Africans are actually doing well and those in Western countries are not doing good, so we should just be happy with the suffering that we have because at least it's not depressing here. But these pastors have never left the continent. If that were true, why is it that a lot of Africans are actually choosing to leave the African continent right now to become slaves in Western countries? These are dangerous teachings that have actually made the subconscious of African people to be addicted to suffering. And this is why the first thing that needs to happen for Africa to actually go forward is not even economic development. It needs to start with the mindset, because nothing can ever move if the mindset is just the same poverty mindset. This is the same mindset that has made Africans obsessed with spending money instead of investing in themselves. If you actually stood today and asked for money to start a business, to fund an innovative idea, no one is going to give you that money. But if you die the same day, the same people who say don't have money, they're gonna have money to raise for your funeral so that you can have a good send off. People have money to buy alcohol, but they wouldn't want to spend that same money to invest in a course that is going to equip them with the skills to do something for themselves. This poverty mindset, coupled with self-hate, is what really makes a lot of Africans think that they are not worthy, and they end up tying themselves to the bottom on their own. And then they'll blame the devil. Why are you blaming the devil? You're the one that is doing this to yourself. And this brings us to the second chapter, which is messiahship. Oh my god, if there's anything that Africans love, is this idea that someone is gonna save them. They think it's like going to church and be like, oh Jesus, I come to you, forgive me for my sins, and boom, you're saved. They think that life is like that. No, that's why I say leave fiction in the church and wake up to the true reality. This idea of being saved that has been borrowed from religion is what really makes it the perfect gateway for the West to come into Africa for its own interests. Have we really forgotten how the missionaries came to Africa in the name of spreading good news, and yet they were paving the way for colonization? That is exactly the same thing that is just happening right now. They're just using different strategies. Western institutions have just taken advantage of this mentality to give loans to African governments, and these loans really have high interest rates that a lot of these African governments are not able to actually pay back. And when they're not able to pay back, then they basically become puppets, and now they have to do whatever it is that the person who loaned them money wants to be done. And that is how African countries or African governments stop being for Africans and start being playgrounds for Western countries. This waiting for a messiah is what is making a lot of NGOs coming in the name of, oh, we're coming to do good, we're coming to eradicate poverty. They end up using Africans as lab rats for their vaccinations, and on top of that, they ensure that as Africans you are addicted to handouts and you don't end up using your time, your skills to push forward innovative ideas that are helpful to the African continent. And really the worst thing of this waiting for a messiah is that people think that it will take only one person to change the entire continent. You know, the thing is, for change to really happen, the pain of staying the same has to be greater than the pain of change. And that is where a lot of Africans have not reached, and that is why things cannot really change. So when we have a leader who is a visionary, who is like, I am going to spearhead change, people are always cheering on, but they're not willing to put themselves on the line, because for change to happen, you actually have to put your own life on the line. line, and people think that that one person has to take the entire sacrifice, and that's why it's easy for these people that come up, these individual people, to be dismantled, to be erased, because it's just one person. This idea of revolution, this idea of change is not something that is seeped in each and every person. Things are becoming worse because Africans are actually not tired of it. You know, Africans are thinking the more suffering we have, the stronger the tickets we have to heaven. And then we come to the third chapter, which is really the intersection of religion and patriarchy, and this majorly affects women. Most of the times in our churches, we are always being taught that as women, we are supposed to be supporting characters not only in our lives, but in the lives of men. You're not allowed to be anything that is shining. You're just supposed to hide yourself somewhere. You're not supposed to be heard, just seen. You're only supposed to be the neck, to be submissive to a man. You're not supposed to be ambitious. You're not supposed to like money. You're not supposed to do anything on your own. You have to wait to do whatever it is you're being told to do. And this mentality that is actually inculcated both in the women and men from a young age is really detrimental to the African continent, because anyone will tell you that women are the gateway to any prosperity, whether it's sociological, psychological, or even economic prosperity. And if you look at the many successful economies in the world, women are the drivers of those economies, most times as consumers. And you know what you need to be a consumer? You need money, your own money. So that means women need to have independence when it comes to money matters for there to be economic prosperity. And we know very well when they say that when you educate a woman, you educate a whole nation. We always see over and over that when women have money, they use that money for good. And that is something that is deeply lacking in the African continent. This idea that women have to ask for permission to do something, to only do things that men can approve of, is really holding us back. We can clearly see that a lot of women are not even allowed to hold political positions if they're not seeking the approval of other men. And even when a few women get access to these positions of power, they're held to such impossible standards, and that is used against any other woman that comes after, because it's like, oh my god, because she did this and this and this, all women are not allowed to now get positions of power. And you can only imagine how many ideas that would actually move the continent have gone unheard, have gone untapped because of this silencing of women. Did you know that as an African woman, it's actually easier for you to start a business in other countries, in Western countries where you go to live as an immigrant, than in your own country? And there's so many success stories of women who have done that, women whose ideas were never heard in their home countries, and when they went to Western countries, they were not only heard, but they were actually invested in. They got the funds and they got their businesses running. Now they have successful businesses. Clearly, this is not helping Africa at all. These other countries are benefiting from African ideas. And now we come to the fourth and last chapter, which is Humility Olympics. If there's one thing you always hear in African churches, is this idea of be humble, God will exalt the humble. There's always this overemphasis on humility without the proper explanation really being given. This has deeply worked to the detriment of Africa as a continent. Africa is the only continent in the world that literally has everything that everyone else in the world wants, but the rest of the world thinks that Africa is so poor and is depending on the entire world. Africans are so obsessed with being humble that they don't tell their own story, and that's why the rest of the world will constantly tell Africa's story in its own way, in the way that it will benefit the other countries. You think it benefits Western countries to say, oh my god, Africa is literally paradise? No, it benefits them to say, oh my god, Africans are dying, they don't have food. That's what gives them permission to come and save you, because they like us save you so much. Oh, you're so humble. You know, the true reality is, if you do not speak about your own achievements, if you don't speak about your own strengths and your own traits, somebody else is going to steal them from you. And this happens even at work. If you are the kind of person that doesn't talk about what they've done, then other people will say that they did the things that you did, and then during your reviews you're going to be told that you're not proactive, that you're not helping the team, and yet you're the one that came up with each and every innovative idea, each and every winning idea. So closed mouths don't get fed. Africans need to be talking about what they have, about what they are. Africans need something called audacity, the Lulu is the Solulu. I mean, look at Formula One, which at most it's an intercontinental sport, but they call themselves a world sport. They even have a world championship event, and you're telling me that Africa cannot call AFCON World Africa Football? You see, even the cock says yes. What's stopping Africa from thinking it's the entire world? I mean, America has been feeding us through Hollywood movies how America is the world, and this is why almost everyone in the world wants to go to America for the American dream, because America has brainwashed you to think that America is the world, that the only way you can achieve your dreams is if you are in America. But Africans are just there like, oh my god, let's be humble. What has humility done for Africa until now? In conclusion, Africans need to do better. It's good, yes, to believe in God, but waiting for God to come and save you when you are the one that is causing your own problems is absolutely ridiculous. You cannot be the same person that is writing a story of mediocrity, living that mediocre story and expecting someone to save you from it. You have to rewrite that story on your own, by your own hands.